We're now live, everyone.
Very good. Good evening and welcome to the May 26, 2021 board meeting of the Fairfax County Park Authority. I'm Bill Bowie. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, the Park Authority needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record, as we did at our first electronic meeting. During our meeting, if you wish to be recognized, please raise your hand, and when I recognize you, please say your name. This will ensure you are recognized and the public knows who is speaking. If you intend to vote nay or abstain on any item, we will need to do a roll call on those votes. Because each member of the board is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct the roll call and ask each board member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask each one of you to pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each one of your colleagues. And following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member's voice, and we will go alphabetically. Dr. Adu.
Abna Adu, I'm participating from my residence in Lee District.
Dr. Carter.
Cynthia Jacobs Carter, I am participating from my home in Lee District.
The authority of election.
Maggie Godbold.
This is Maggie Godbold, and I'm participating from my home in the Sully District.
Linwood Gorham.
This is Linwood Gorham. I'm participating from my home in the Mount Vernon District.
Tim Hackman.
Tim Hackman. I'm participating from my residence in the Drainsville District.
Ron Kendall.
Ron Kendall, participating from my home in Mason District.
Faisal Khan. Faisal
My
Khan.
residence in Providence District.
Kyle Stone.
Kyle Stone from my residence in the Braddock District.
Ken Quincy.
Ken Quincy, participating from my residence in the Providence District.
Mike Thompson.
Mike Thompson from my residence in the Springfield District.
Jim Zook.
District.
Jim.
Jim Zook from my residence in Springfield District.
Very good. And I'm Bill Bowie, and I'm participating from my residence in the Hunter Mill District. We almost got that alphabetically right. Sorry about that, Mr. Quincy. Q comes before S. That's all right.
That's what I thought.
At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel over to Vice Chairman Quincy so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this board.
Ken Quincy, you have heard the motion. Is there a second?
This is Mike Thompson. I second the motion.
Ken Quincy, it has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. The motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Quincy. This is Bill Bowie. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by each other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this board to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of this board and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that this board may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated video conference service. It is so moved.
Ken Quincy, you have heard the motion. Is there a second?
Tim Hackman, I second the motion.
Ken Quincy, is there discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Mr. Chairman, the motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Quincy. Finally, it is next required that all matters addressed on today's agenda must address the state of emergency itself, are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations, and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
You have heard the motion. Is there a second?
This is Mike Thompson. I second the motion.
Ken Quincy, it has been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Mr. Chairman, the motion carries.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we can start the meeting. On to countywide admin item number 1 is the resolution honoring John Finnegan upon his retirement from the Fairfax County Park Authority.
I second the motion. Ken Quincy.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. The motion carries. Okay.
Wow, we found it.
Whereas IT program manager John Finnegan is retiring after more than 21 years of dedicated service to the Fairfax County Park Authority and the residents of Fairfax County as the leader of the agency's critical information technology hub. And whereas John Finnegan got his start with the Park Authority in October of 1999, just as the agency was facing uncertainties of the Y2K technology challenge and successfully guiding the agency's information technology systems and applications into the new century. And whereas John Finnegan oversaw the growth of the Park Authority's computing environment from 369 devices to 600 workstations and laptops for staff, an additional 100 point-of-sale workstations for use in revenue collection activities. And whereas over the years, John Finnegan obtained more than $1.7 million in county technology funding for agency information technology initiatives. And whereas John Finnegan created the Park Authority's help desk section and implemented the agency's first help desk application for tracking service requests and providing performance metrics, and oversaw the migration of the Park Authority's separate network of communications providers at sites to the county's enterprise network. Whereas John Finnegan helped lead the agency's migration from ParkNet to EasyLinks and ultimately to GolfNow G1 for golf management and tee sheet management at the agency's golf course, helped lead the Park Authority's migration from its first recreational management application, ParkNet, from the microcomputer environment to the Windows Server environment, and played the critical leadership role in the project to replace ParkNet application with Recreation Dynamics as the agency's recreation management solution. And whereas John Finnegan has been recognized for his outstanding work with 5 Director Leadership Awards, and now therefore be it resolved by the Fairfax County Park Authority Board that it expresses appreciation and thanks to John Finnegan for dedicated and outstanding contributions to the Park Authority and the residents of Fairfax County, adopted by the Fairfax County Park Authority Board on May 26, 2021. Congratulations, John.
This is John Finnegan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm very honored to receive this recognition. I have it right here. I really consider it a capstone to my career, which began in Fairfax County at the National Technical Information Service, down the road from what's now Audrey Moore Rec Center, where we would go at lunchtime and play basketball on the new floor that had been installed there. I'd like to thank a lot of the people that were here when I got here, people like Paul Baldino and Mike Kane, Cindy Messenger, Lee Stevenson, Tim White, Lynn Tadlock, and Miriam Morrison. I'd also like to thank now our leadership, Amy Vosper, and our acting executive director, Sarah Baldwin. I'd like to wish my supervisor, Michael Peter, much good luck for going forward. I've appreciated working for him briefly. And I'd like also just to thank my wife for her love and support over these years and congratulate her too. She's retiring with me. We're in our empty house packing that up and headed out. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful.
That's great. Congratulations. John, you make me feel old. You're talking about you came in at Y2K and now you're retiring. There's got to be something wrong with this because I was at AT&T divestiture in 1977. So it's a little bit crazy, but best wishes on, and you don't have to do any technology going forward except for finding the appropriate Wi-Fi connection in your new home and whatever device you're going to use it on. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Don't be a stranger, please.
I won't. I'll be in contact and thank you again.
You're welcome. Any other comments from any of the other board members? All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Countywide admin item number 2 is
Chairman, would you please make an amendment to the agenda for the A5 action item,
Okay.
which is now just a discussion item?
Okay. So there is, I'm going to find it here. All right. So A5, which was an action item, will now just be a discussion item. Okay. All right. So we are on to the adoption of the minutes of the April 28th. What? April 28th, 2020. Yeah, I guess it was a glitch. 2021 board meeting.
Ken Quincy, I second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Countywide admin number 3 is the adoption of the minutes of the May 12th, 2021 special board meeting.
Ken Quincy, I second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That motion carries. All right, we have a presentation this evening, the county strategic plan overview. And I'd ask Sarah White to begin this discussion.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Dewey. I am Sarah White, and I'm a member of the Countywide Strategic Planning Team. Amy Brobst, who is our coordinator, was scheduled to be here but had a conflict, so I bravely stepped in to chat with you guys tonight. I'm assuming that most folks are familiar with the Countywide Strategic Plan, but since we took a pause in our public process, we thought it would be best to provide you with a broad overview of how the plan came together and where we are relative to the board adoption of this plan.
Shirley.
I'm sorry, am I good to go? Okay.
Yes, you're good.
Okay, sorry. So let me go back one slide if I could, Amy. I'm gonna stay on that overview slide for just a second. I want to explain briefly how the plan was developed throughout 2019. So the proposed plan was presented to the Board of Supervisors in February of 2020, along with the fiscal year 21 budget, with the expectations that the Board of Supervisors would adopt the strategic plan in the spring of 2020. Unfortunately, as we all are aware, COVID hit in March of 2020, and it caused us, along with everybody else in the county, to sort of pause our process and review things, which is what we did through most of 2020. That period of being on hold allowed us to do 3 things. Number one, even though the plan had been designed to be high level and long-term to easily adapt over time, we needed to take a fresh look at our plan in the context of COVID. Second, we wanted to have additional conversations with board members and have some time to re-engage the community through 2 rounds of community engagement. And finally, as other initiatives came on board, such as Chairman McKay's task force on equity and opportunity and the COVID economic recovery framework, As these came online in the wake of the pandemic, we wanted to align our plan with these initiatives so that staff and the community could better understand how all these various pieces fit together. So I can go on to the next slide now, please. Again, a little bit of background on the development of the plan, since it's been a year or so since you probably last saw it. This slide shows our goals in developing a strategic plan and why we wanted to develop something that was countywide like this. We wanted to be really clear on what we were doing. So first, we wanted to set a clear community-driven vision for the next 10 to 20 years that everyone can see and understand. Secondly, we wanted to align and integrate existing issue and department-specific plans. So it's no secret that we're a large county and each agency has its different plans. And while we recognize the importance of these numerous plans, we also needed a high-level framework to unite and drive the many different initiatives that the county collectively pursues. And so that was one of our goals for the countywide strategic plan. We also wanted to provide a mechanism to focus and prioritize shorter-term initiatives, which would help the Board of Supervisors dedicate resources to the community's top priorities and adapting needs as they evolve. And then finally, we wanted to share progress on specific outcomes that matter the most to our community, both in the short and the longer term. As a system, we're really good at collecting lots and lots of data, but we see the strategic plan as an opportunity to take a more cohesive approach to the way we use and communicate our data and our successes on a countywide level. Let's see, next slide, please. So as we developed our plan, we followed these four guiding principles. First of all was to apply a racial and social equity lens. While the county is a great place to be overall, we all know that persistent racial and social inequities and disparities in outcomes continue to exist. So we wanted to be really intentional about addressing those inequities and disparities. The second was we wanted to create multiple inclusive opportunities for everyone to participate and strengthen communication with our residents over time. Our third guiding principle was to define the outcomes that the community most wanted to see. And then finally, again, related to what I spoke of earlier, we wanted to more intentionally use data-driven insights to develop our strategies and to communicate not just our progress, but also communicate areas where we still have a lot of work to do. Next slide, please. So these are the themes that we focused on through the development of the plan. First of all, access, which means eliminating barriers wherever we can so that residents can easily connect with the information and the services that they need. Number two, affordability. This is a longstanding issue in this county, which has only been exacerbated during COVID. And so it's a major theme that you'll see throughout our strategic plan. Collaboration and engagement, which we define as truly maximizing the ideas and energy of the community and of the county staff and working harder to solve problems together. The next one, innovation. We see this as embracing change and seeking new ways of working, and especially now with a particular emphasis of learning the lessons that were used during COVID to keep business going during this crisis. Next, sustainability, both from a resource standpoint, as well as thinking about the long-term impacts of the decisions that we're making today. And then finally, placemaking, which is recognizing that where people live is a major determinant in the opportunities that they will experience. Does the area in which they live produce access to basic needs, such as affordable housing, healthcare, safety and security, transportation, and so on? And does the area also provide cultural and recreational opportunities that enrich their lives, such as the arts, beautiful parks, and social connections? Most importantly, are these opportunities equitably shared? Placemaking is about creating environments where all people can thrive. Next slide, please. So you see here on this page, the 9 priority outcome areas that were identified by the community and form the basis of our strategic plan. We consider these chapter headings for our strategic plan. They were developed based on the input we received from residents, businesses, nonprofits, county employees, and others. And we specifically focused on reaching people who may not be normally interested or able to participate in this type of process. These 9 priority areas have been used in countywide budget documents over the past 2 years, and departments have started the process of aligning their own strategic initiatives within the framework that these 9 areas provide. Within each of these 9 areas, there are strategies, outcomes, and metrics to help measure success. The plan is very comprehensive, very thorough, and is something like 70 pages long. While it would be great if all of you could read and provide feedback on the plan, I'm a realist and I recognize that this would be very unlikely. We usually encourage people to examine the areas that would mean the most to them. As you might expect, the area that would be of particular interest to the Park Authority Board is cultural and recreational opportunities. However, I would challenge you to also look beyond just that priority area. The area of health and environment is also strongly related to the work of the Park Authority and the Park Authority Board. The same goes for housing and neighborhood livability. And I would challenge that most of these 9 areas, there is something that relates to parks and the importance that they play in our community, whether it be in lifelong education and learning, in effective and efficient government, and so on. Next slide, please. So this just shows a high-level timeline of the major milestones in the plan's development. And again, we started planning in early 2019. During 2019, each of those priority areas that I just showed you, each of those 9 areas had a team that conducted research about that particular area. The teams identified key factors that contribute to our ability to succeed. They developed the indicators of community success. So essentially identifying what the community most wants to see. And they also drafted strategies that were connected back to these indicators and metrics to assess how we're doing. During this time, and it's indicated by the little red figures there, during this time, we also received extensive community feedback to make sure that we were hearing from diverse voices on what we should include in the plan. We consulted again with residents, businesses, board authorities and commissions, and other community groups. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we presented the plan to the Board of Supervisors in February of 2020, but had to pause the process due to COVID. We've spent many months now updating the plan so that it reflects our COVID realities. And this brings us to where we are today. As you see here on this slide, that star, which actually should be moved to the right another box or two, since we're now in May and almost June, but that star represents where we are on the timeline. And again, the red heads there show where we are planning to continue to engage the community. Once our 4th and final phase of community outreach and engagement is complete, our plan is to analyze all of the feedback for trends and to determine exactly how it will be included in the proposed strategic plan. We are making plans now for the actual implementation of the plan that will ultimately be adopted by the Board of Supervisors on October 5th. Final slide, please. So that is the end of the overview of where we are with the strategic plan. Our ask of you now is that you view the plan in its entirety at www.fairfax.com, fairfaxcounty.gov/strategic plan, and I'll put that in the chat box. There is a place on the website to share your comments and your feedback. I will warn you, and you can also look up the plan in its entirety on that site. The site is a little bit wonky. The comment box for feedback comes first, and then you scroll down to the plan itself. You can download a PDF of the plan, or you can just look at the various sections that interest you. But again, keep scrolling down. It's there. It just isn't quite obvious when you first land on the page. And while we do have ways on electronically for you to share your thoughts about the plan, please know that you can also reach out to us individually if there's something that you'd like to share. You see my contact information there. And if there's something that I can't answer, I'm happy to find the appropriate person who can help you. So again, I'll put the link to the plan in the chat box as soon as I'm finished talking. And thank you for letting me speak to your group. I look forward to our future collaboration.
Thank you very much, Sarah. We appreciate it. Any questions from the board? No board member questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Mhm. All right, action items in Mason District, A1, the approval. Name Pine Ridges Park's baseball area, Carer Baseball Complex at Pine Ridge Park, and then the Pine Ridge Baseball batting cages, Rick Elliott batting cages at Pine Ridge Park, to recognize two longtime volunteers and advocates of the Annandale North Springfield Little League.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Kendall, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request by the Annandale North Springfield Little League for naming of their Pine Ridge Baseball Complex and batting cages as they have requested.
Okay.
Ken Quincy, I'll second the motion.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The motion carries. Now there will be a presentation on two Maston Brook grant requests. And Dan Sutherland is going to take those through us. Dan?
Good evening, everybody. This is Dan Sutherland. As Mr. Quincy said, we have two grant requests for you tonight. I'm sure the presentation was starting to come up now. So the first grant request is from the Friends of Green Springs Gardens. Next slide, please. They are requesting to install a retaining wall along one of the trails within the park. That trail routinely gets silt and other debris raining down and eroding onto it. And so they want to improve the trail for not only appearance reasons, but also safety reasons, as well as make that area of the park look a lot better. So the project itself is $55,000 and $825. The grant would give $11,000. The Friends group is proposing to provide $11,000 to match. And then there's also the remaining balance of funding would come from some bond money that's dedicated to site improvements for the Green Spring facility. Next slide, please. So as you can see, it's the trail on the western side of the property, and it's leading up from the house into the back of the park. Next. So with the approval of this potential grant, it's money would come from the bond as well as from the group and from the grant program. And if approved, it would leave approximately $90,000 in the grant program for future use. Next slide. So I wanted to take just a second and give a little shout out to congratulations. This is your 200th grant since the inception of the program, which was in year 2000. The 100th grant was approved back in 2011. So you could say we're trending upwards in the fact that we're passing grants a lot quicker than we used to. And next slide, please. So with the approval of this, potential approval of this 200th grant request, you see the summary of all the grants over the years. So we've approved about total project cost of a little over 12 million against 1.8 million in grant money. So overall, a great success and something I think not only staff, but board members and everybody should feel good about and proud of. So after that short hurrah, we'll move on to the next grant selection. Next slide, please. All right. And the next selection or grant request is from McLean Youth Soccer Association. They're proposed.
I'm sorry, Dan, this
Yes.
is Mike Thompson. Do we need to move the granting of that grant request?
No, we're going to do it once he presents, we'll do both of them, Mike, at the same time.
Okay.
McLean Youth Soccer is proposing to convert a grass field over to synthetic at Howery Field Park, which is just south of Spring Hill Elementary and Spring Hill Rec Center. Next slide, please. All right, so the total project cost is a little over 1.6 million. You'll see the breakdown of the design, the permits, construction, contingency, and the rest. And they're looking to do a field that's slightly larger than what you're used to seeing. It's going to be about 240 by 390 in turf, which normally they're about 370 by about 190 or so. So part of the cost increases because of the size of the turf field. Next slide, please. All right, so they're making a request for $20,000 grant match. McLean Youth is proposing providing $650,000 to match it. And then along with some recent board approved funding reallocations from Langley Fork Parks that totals just over $1 million. That's the funding mechanism for this particular project. Next slide, please. As you can see, the field is in the very southwest portion, just south of the elementary school and just south of the rec center up above. The reason the grass is beige like it is because it's currently a Bermuda grass field. So that with irrigated and all that, it'll be replaced at that time. Next slide, please. All right, so again, you see the money coming from different pots within the bond. And then you're also going to have the money coming from the group and the $20,000 in the grant that's being requested. So if that's approved, that will leave a total of $70,000 available to the program. This does not count, just so you know, there is an additional $400,000 within the 2020 bond that was approved by you all, and that is available to be reallocated and made available to future grant projects upon the use of the remaining $70,000 here. Next slide, please. And is there any questions to either one of those?
Mike?
This is less specific to these two, but just generally, and I think I've mentioned this before in other settings, but is there a way to put together just a quick report about the success of this program and to send that to each of the supervisors and also to each of the school board members? This program is something that we have done, we've been very successful with, and is a potential model that other parts of the county should be looking at as ways to leverage community investment.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions? All right. So we've got, thanks, Dan. So in Mason District A2, Green Springs Garden, Maston Brook Matching Fund Grant Program request for the Friends of Green Springs.
Yeah, this is Ron Kendall. I'd like to make a motion to approve this $11,000 Maston Brook grant for Green Spring Gardens to help in the construction of a retaining wall.
This is Linwood Gorm. I'd like to second that motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. That motion carries. In the Drainsville District, A3, Holiday Field, Maston Brook Matching Fund Grant Program request, McLean Youth Soccer.
This is Tim Hackman. I move to approve the $20,000 Maston Brook Matching Fund grant request from McLean Youth Soccer to help fund the synthetic turf project and perform related improvements at Holiday Field.
Ken Quincy, I second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That motion carries. Countywide, A4, Planning and Development Division, CIP FY 2022 through FY 2026 with out years to 2028, the project development schedule.
Ken Quincy, I'd like to make a motion to approve Planning and Development Division CIP FR 2022 to FY 2026 with out years to 2028 project development schedule.
This is Mike Thompson. I second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. A5 now is not an action item, it's an information item, which is policy 111, policy for participation in meetings by electronic communication with the presentation. So give it to Amy.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I would like to ask, if possible, if we could amend, excuse me, amend the motion to change the date of the special meeting to May 17th. We had it listed in the script as May 12th, which was the date that the meeting did not launch. So it was actually May 17th.
Okay.
This is Mike Thompson. I move to amend the minutes to reflect the date of May 17th.
Ken Quincy, I second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Bowie. This is Amy Vosper, and you've just made Barbara Gorski and I very happy. So next up, what we're going to talk about tonight is about the new policy that needs to be in place to allow the park board members to participate remotely in the Park Authority meeting. Hannah, could you bring up that PowerPoint? Thank you. So next slide, please. So once the governor's emergency order is rescinded, electronic meetings will not be allowed, but participation in meetings remotely will be possible with this policy. That's why we need to put a policy in place. As noted earlier in the meeting, due to the late changes in the legislative language, tonight we'll be discussing the item, which is beneficial, the changes are beneficial, and approving the policy at the June 23rd meeting. Next slide, please. So hybrid or combination in-person and remote participation, that's what we're calling hybrid meetings, because there has to be a quorum present in person in order to hold the meeting. If a quorum or of in-person members are not present, regardless of how many people are participating remotely, then the meeting cannot occur. Next slide, please. So the caveat here, and something that is fairly new to all of us, is that for remote participation, there's only a handful of reasons that they'll allow you to participate remotely. For a personal matter, which is permitted twice a year or 25% of the meetings, we have 20 meetings, so that's about 5 meetings. For a temporary or permanent disability, that's unlimited. For a medical condition, that's unlimited number of meetings. Or this is the new caveat, which was just added, caring for a family member who has a disability or a medical condition. And that also is unlimited. Next slide, please. So one of the little hangups, but I don't think it's a big hangup, is that you need prior notification and permission for attending remotely. And that's from the Park Authority chair, or it could be designated to the vice chair. And we have got some questions out. It could be designated to someone else within the membership as well. But you do have to notify before you can just show up remotely, and you have to secure permission. You also need to disclose the nature of the personal matter, but a member is not obligated to provide independent verification regarding the temporary or permanent disability or other medical condition, or the family member's medical condition as well. As I mentioned earlier, there's no limitation on the the medical condition reasoning. Next slide, please. So the most important bullet on this page is an understanding that these matters will be part of the minutes. The minutes shall include all required information as to the reasons and approvals of such remote participation, including the recordation of the number of times members are participating remotely. We wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that it had to be captured within the minutes. So that's the overview of the policy. And Hannah, I believe you have the revised policy. Did we get that to you? Could you pull that up for a minute?
Yes, 1 second.
Thank you. And the one change was that they added the family member caveat for the temporary or permanent disability or medical condition. And then they also wordsmithed it quite a bit. So, as you go down, these mandatory requirements. So that's the kind of the basic area where they were doing some improvement. And it is beneficial to all the boards and commissions. And they also included the 25% of the meetings, not just 2 meetings a year, but 25%, because like other boards, we meet quite a bit. And I think you're not obligated to provide the independent verification for yourself and for your family member. So those were pretty much the highlights of the change in the policy, but we wanted to make sure that that was properly notified. So that's why this is a discussion item tonight and an approval in June. Any comments? Yes.
Yes, Mike.
Just a practical question. Thinking about committee meetings, which are technically now committee of the whole meetings, that are still specific to an area like golf operations. Are those committee meetings considered unique? In other words, if park operations committee only meets 8 times, do we have to track that the potential of only missing those meetings twice, separate and apart from the board meetings? Or since they're all committee of the whole meetings and there would be 5 billion committee of the whole meetings, do we not have to worry about it? And therefore, if you were gone, you had to access remotely a board meeting and were covered on that end, you'd basically be covered for committee meetings.
That's a good question. And I think that you're right in that if it were a committee of the whole, it's the whole Park Authority board. Therefore, it goes into the big pot of Park Authority board meetings. If we look at it as these committee meetings as separate independent meetings, then the provisions would still apply.
Right.
So I'm not sure we can analyze and see what's better.
Yeah,
what
I'm
would
just
be better.
I mean, just for lack of a better way to say this, I'm looking at it from an accounting process, a what counts where kind of issue. In order for somebody who might be fine and on the board meeting side, but get messed up by a tripwire on the committee meeting side, and just want to make sure that we're in compliance.
Okay. And we can do some analysis of what that would mean to go with either independent committees as we did before, or committee of the whole.
Ron.
Sir.
Yeah, I mean, my question would be location specific. If you're out of the country and you do want to remotely attend the meeting, would that be a personal matter or would that be out of bounds?
The county attorney has not given guidance on whether or not, having a car problem or being on vacation would be different, a differentiation between that as a personal matter. So I can check on that as well. They have not given direction there. The difference in that you would have to designate, or you may have to designate why you have the personal matter versus the medical condition that's off limits, but you have to designate in the minutes the personal matter. I'm not sure that being out of the country, but that could be a reason.
But being that whoever it is going to have that conversation with the chair, it's the chair that will communicate whatever that condition is. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is different. Now, remember, this is different than just your regular attendance policy.
Right.
So.
Yeah, do those overlap in this case?
No.
No.
Amy, as you're checking this, you might as well check that. What if somebody's stuck at work?
That could be considered car problems.
Linwood?
I would kind of expect a somewhat loose interpretation of personal matters since the number of meetings allowed to be missed is kind of limited. I hope that at least is the way it goes. And I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, but when's the governor's emergency on the electronic meetings over?
That is a good question. We do not know when he's going to lift that order. That Fairfax County does not know when he's going to lift the order. There's been discussion about the end of June, the end of July, the end of August. There's also a question of if Fairfax County is still under their emergency order, would boards and commissions still be allowed to meet completely electronically? So that's a question that we have into the county attorney's office right now.
Abner?
Thank you. I'm a little confused because, so there's a limit on personal matter, but you're saying that personal matter, I mean, not you, but policy saying then that personal matter is broadcast in the minutes? What if it's something that is so personal, it doesn't need to be made public? I mean, there's a limit on how many of those you can take to start with.
Yeah, I think that's a question was brought up about how specific, because in the legislation, it notes with specificity that this personal matter is listed in the minutes. So we can get clarification on how specific they are intending it to be.
Right.
I guess overall, you would expect that, this is fairly new as well, that they don't want abuse of remote participation when boards and commissions should be open and wide open to the public. And that's what they're balancing in all of this.
Abena, for what it's worth, I went and read the legislation. They picked the language up straight from the legislation the General Assembly passed. So this is only possible because of that legislation and uses that language. So we're kind of bound by it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any
Mr.
other
Chairman, yes.
Jim?
Tim Hackman, just to clarify again what Amy said, this is provides the means by which one may participate in the meetings remotely. if you go beyond the, for example, the 2 or 25% personal matters, and it just means that you can't participate remotely. It doesn't mean, there's the separate attendance policy that about which Amy was talking. So, that's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? Ron?
Just the last, it identifies 2 or 25%. Which is the driver?
Whichever is greater.
Whichever is greater.
Abena?
I just wanted to ask, since Mike, you said you had looked at the legislation, where is this policy situated with regards to vaccination? Is it the assumption that everyone is getting vaccinated?
Got nothing to do with vaccination.
Well, I guess the health concern is what I'm asking. Oh, this has nothing to do.
Yeah, this would apply. My understanding, the thing to consider is this. Imagine a world 3 years forward from now and assume there's no more pandemic, anything ever kicks in. The idea is to have a policy that would allow people to participate remotely, acknowledging that in order to do that, we had to have enabling legislation to do it. And then we have to adopt a policy that aligns with that so that our own rules let us do it. Recognizing that we have to have a quorum present in place in person to even make it possible.
Okay, so and again, I'm sorry if I don't understand it. So for a pandemic, that's why we had the extraordinary
circumstance.
Right.
So
waiver to do what we do now. Okay.
Yes. So if we had another pandemic, or we went into the same one in a next, and the governor was to go into the emergency orders once again, then the electronic meeting legislation would kick back in. So everyone's covered through crisis. It's when there's no crisis, but everyone has really found that remote participation works. So they had to put some guidelines in place for legislation in place for that.
And remember, for medical, you have unlimited.
Right.
Remember, for medical, you have unlimited. If you have a cold or runny nose or bloody nose, those are medical. Those are unlimited.
Headache.
If you have a headache, it's unlimited. If you have a medical condition, it's unlimited. All right. Any other discussion? Thank you, Amy. Jim.
Just briefly, it just seems odd that something that is a personal matter is recorded in the minutes. Be it as is, so that's just weird. Anyway.
And I think they will be probably trying to change that part of the legislation come next year.
Yeah, what does personal mean anyway? Personal, right?
If medical is unlimited. If you have a hangnail, it's unlimited. If you have a headache, it's unlimited. I will be looking for you to tell me what the issue is. And then I will convey that.
And one other point, you are not required to disclose a medical condition.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you, Chairman.
Anytime. Just remember, if you've got a medical condition, it's unlimited. Okay. All right. Next information item is officially information item, should be information item 2 now since it moved down. The Laurel Hill Golf Club canopy mounted solar installation, panel installation with Keith Snyder presenting.
Can you all hear me? This is Keith Snyder.
Yes, we can.
I have to apologize. I'm just getting over a daycare virus from my son. Great gift. So I'll try to get through this as easily as possible here. So we're looking at putting a canopy mounted solar array at the Laurel Hill Golf Club parking lot. Next slide, please. The county has a contract with several solar vendors and between two different types of setups, one for canopy mounted solar and one for rooftops. Our primary vendor for canopy mounted solar is SunTribe Solar in partnership with Bright Sweet and Dominion. They're based out of Richmond. So what we're looking at here is zero upfront cost to the county, to the park authority. There's no money upfront to install solar through the county contracts. The money is paid to the solar vendors as a utility rate over the life of the installation. We have a 30-year, we're looking at a 30-year contract with SunTribe for the installation, and there's options afterwards to either remove, replace, or continue operation, which will be laid out when we go to sign the PPA. Over the life of the 30-year contract, we're looking at a $250,000 savings based on current Dominion grid rates, projected grid rates over that time. Obviously, utility rates can fluctuate pretty drastically, but it's about a 2.5% increase per year escalation factor that we see in the electric grid over the past 20 or 30 years. So that's what that savings is based off of. The sizing of the installation will account for about 78% of the current utility or electric usage at the golf club. They do have electric carts at the facility, so it is a larger consumption than some of our other golf club or than any other golf clubhouse that we have. So it's a pretty substantial installation, and we'll get into that in the next slides here. And the next steps for the county is to actually sign the power purchase agreement. And that would be a memo from the director's office, from Sarah, to procurement. We're looking at any day now we could sign it. We finally got a final copy of the memo and the power purchase agreement from procurement, and we're in the final stages there. Next slide, please. So from a design standpoint, this is what you're going to see if you were in a balloon over top of Laurel Hill in the future. The panels won't necessarily be blue, but they will cover two of the parking islands, two of the three. That 78% sizing, we did not want to go 100% or more. We don't want to export power to the grid. It would end up being a cost to the county. So we do not want to do that. So we wanted to leave some extra space there and make it look as aesthetically pleasing as possible, hence only using two of the islands versus all three. And that does open us up to the potential when the roof is replaced in a few years or down the line to potentially add a little solar array to the roof to supplement the solar generation at the site and get to 100% offset at the club. Next slide, please. Here's what you're going to see from the ground. We've got a couple of renderings from SunTribe. This is if you're at the clubhouse walking back to the parking lot. You can see the lights from the high school ball fields in the background. The canopies themselves, and we'll get to a cut sheet of the design here. But on the low side, they're 10 feet on the low side clearance underneath. Most parking garages are 8.5 to 9 foot in clearance, so they're higher than even the Heritage Building parking garage. On the high side, the underneath is about 12 foot clearance, and the top is just under 14 foot. The current light poles in the parking lot are 15 or 16 foot poles. So there will actually be a little bit, if you're familiar with the golf club, they'll be a little bit lower than the current lights that are installed in the parking lot. Next slide, please. Couple of pictures from around other parts of the parking lot. The top one is driving in from the lower entrance if you were to avoid the backdrop. You can see this is to scale, so you would have plenty of clearance between the cars and the canopies. There isn't the canopies would be out of the driving lanes as well. So if any buses or large tractor trailers for demo days came into the parking lot, they would still be able to go up and down the aisles without interacting with the solar panels themselves. And you can see from the bottom picture, that's if you were looking, your back is to the driving range. You actually would not be able to see the canopies that much because of the tilt of them, and they'll be hidden a little bit. For this presentation, I didn't add in pictures from the golf course, but the parking lot itself kind of sits in a bowl. And you can see in the top picture, the evergreens in the background. Those obscure the canopies from the course fairly well. Once you leave the clubhouse area, you have a hard time even seeing the top of the clubhouse, let alone the parking lot. So we did some reconnaissance there, and there will be minimal visible impact of the canopies other than in the parking lot and the immediate clubhouse area. Next slide, please. So from a timeline perspective, we're looking in March, we did a public review. We had a 2-week comment period. We've got some good comments back from the public about the vegetation underneath of the canopies and ensuring that we are eco-friendly and have friendly environments for the local animals. Not too many concerns with having the canopies in the parking lot itself. So we did deem that a success and move forward with trying to get the PPA signed. To note that right now there are 0 PPAs signed in the county by any agency. This contract with the solar vendors was signed in November or October of 2019. So almost a year and a half ago, over a year and a half ago. And to date, no contracts have been signed. So that's why this is taking a little bit longer. It's been over a month now since we got out of that 14-day comment period. And so we're hopeful to get that signed with in the next couple business days here. So once the PPA is designed or signed, then we'll go into detailed design with SunTribe Solar. That's where they'll have all the sketches and where the solar footings go and get the detail on exactly what the construction window we're looking at. We do have a hard deadline of needing to be finished construction end of February 2021 for scheduling purposes at the club at the moment. So construction could begin late fall into the winter, or it may be pushed out to next July, potentially, if we cannot meet that construction timeline. So it could swing, but there's some information that could be potentially coming out of the club that could change that time. So that will not be installed any in the near future, but look forward in the next several months down the line. Next slide, please.
Keith, I think that
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that Reston Community Center has signed the first PPA.
Okay. I had not heard that they got it signed, so I'm glad that they did.
Ron?
First, yeah, just on your last slide, you've got February 2021, and it obviously should be 2022. I think you probably will have to displace about 30 trees that are planted in that parking lot. Is there a plan to put them somewhere else on the property? Or I hate losing tree canopy.
Very, very good question. This is Keith again. The SunTribe is working with Urban Forestry to review the tree setup in the parking lot. The only doing 2 of the islands. Reviewing the original design of the layout in the parking lot, there were a lot of trees that were not included in the shading calculation on the original setup. And Urban Forestry is confident of relooking at where we're at now and redoing that calculation. So we may not even need to add any more trees to the parking lot from a requirement standpoint, but SunTribe is going to meet and exceed the, or they are at least going to meet the county standard for shading in the parking lot.
I guess finally, I think given the way the structures are put up, you're probably going to want to do some advertising on site that that's what they are, because most golfers are going to come in and think you just put up a bunch of shade structures for them.
This is Keith again. Great input. We did advertise for the public review, and Ryan at the club has been working with the members to inform them that this is coming. And once the PPA is signed, we can do a quarterly or routine update or communication with the members and staff. And you're right, we may want to do either some recorded or at least communication with all the members during construction about what they're seeing there. And to note, SunTribe and the other solar vendors, they do have dashboards, and they keep track of the generation on a routine basis, on an ongoing basis. So we'll be able to advertise how much the panels are putting out on a day-to-day basis, and put that, if we put it at rec centers, it can go on the display inside of the rec center. We can put it on the Laurel Hill webpage or on the golf webpage, just to let people know what's going on in their parking lot.
So Keith, is there going to be any power generation storage or backup on this?
That's a good question. So currently there's no, we aren't planning any power backup for that facility. There's potential at other facilities that are more shelter facilities that would need power generation or backup generation. Any excess power generated from the site would go back to the grid, and the part of the project would be swapping out the meter for a two-way meter that would then be evened out over the billing cycle.
Yeah, I use it at home. I get a 73% recovery year over year. Tim?
Thank you, Tim Hackman. Is there a rated efficiency of the panels? I know that lately there have been some real improvements in solar panel efficiency, and depending upon what's being used for this installation, will there be the possibility to upgrade them over time, or to have more efficient panels installed in future installations?
That's a great question there, Tim. This is Keith again. Because we're doing a power purchase agreement, and we're not actually purchasing the panels themselves, we're purchasing the power generated from the panels. So we aren't necessarily going to get the cutting edge technology, the highest efficiency, because that's going to cost us more now and long term. We'll get kind of middle of the road, and the agreement is set up so day one production, the average of the first month will be the 100% delivery requirement. And over the course of 30 years, they can only drop down to 85% of that total day, first generation total. So if they're producing 100 kilowatts by year 30, they still have to deliver 85. So it's up to SunTribe to, and we don't have to manage the panels at all. That's out of our hands. We're in the business of forestry and parks and recreation. We're not in the business of maintaining solar. So if they decide year 20 that better technology is out there and they can install them and still meet our needs, that's a potential, but it's more than likely that what's installed next year will stay there for 30 years.
Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah, this is Linwood. Just a brief comment to Ron's subject of public outreach to this. In addition to what was mentioned, there was a public meeting on this subject where all this was laid out as it's being laid out to us tonight. As a matter of fact, when I first started this meeting tonight, I go, didn't we already hear this? I go, oh no, that was the public meeting. So anyway, thank you.
Yes, this is Keith again. And if anyone wants to see the public meeting that has a bit more details in it, it is still online and can be forwarded around as needed.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Countywide information item number 3 is the Planning and Development Quarterly Project Status Report with a presentation from Stephanie.
Good evening. This is Stephanie Leadham, Division Director for Park Planning and Development, and I'm going to be presenting the first quarter 2021 completed projects report. I think Hannah's pulling up the presentation now, and thank you, Keith, for the great presentation as well. All right, you can go next slide. And there were no countywide projects completed this quarter, so keep going. All right. In the Braddock District, we had 2 completed projects. Next slide. All right. In the Braddock District, Smokewood Park Bridge was replaced in April ahead of schedule and under budget. Tom McFarland and Ed DeLeon managed this effort to replace a steel bridge that was structurally failing with a new fiberglass bridge, providing commuter connections and links to recreational opportunities in the community. Next slide. And then also in the Braddock District, the roof was replaced at the Area 2 maintenance shop. Mohammed Mahboob managed that project and delivered it ahead of schedule and on budget, funded by the 2016 bond. Next slide. All right, in Drainsville, we had 2 completed projects this quarter. Next slide. We had a wonderful celebration at Colvin Run Mill a few weeks ago with the first turn of the new flume and wheel and the first grind of the season. This project was funded through 2012 and 2016 bond funds managed by Heather Lynch, who oversaw construction by HIT and B.E. Hassett Millwrights. The project was delivered ahead of time and on budget and was exciting to be part of the opening ceremony live on site, as well as having board members Tim Hackman and Maggie Godbold join us at the mill that day. Next slide. Also in Drainsville District, the Area 1 maintenance facility replacement project was completed, funded by the 2016 bond. Heather Lynch managed this construction contract with Cooper Building Services, bringing this project on time and on budget for a new 7,500 square foot facility, which replaced an inadequate maintenance shop. Next slide. There were no completed projects in the Hunter Mill District this quarter. Next. And in Lee District, we had 1 completed project. Next. We completed 2 athletic field irrigation replacements on fields 1 and 2 at Beulah Park, Diamond Fields. The project was managed by Pat Rosend and completed in April on budget. Next. Can go forward to the Providence District slide. Okay, next slide. In Providence, another Diamond Field irrigation replacement project was completed at Nottoway Park, Diamond Field number 6. Pat Rosend also managed this project with Premier Sports Fields and completed the project in April of 2021. Next. And in Springfield, there were 2 completed projects. Next. The Braddock Park security lighting improvements replaced existing fixtures in the parking lots with new poles and LED fixtures, as well as trail lights. The project was funded through the 2016 bond managed by Mohammed Mahboob with Musco Lighting and was completed in March on time and under budget. Next. And then a much celebrated project recently completed at Burke Lake and opened virtually a few weeks ago was the Park Foundation Celebration Shelters at Burke Lake Park. These 2 rentable picnic shelters provide shaded gathering space near the ice cream parlor. And Heather Lynch managed this project with Bowman, Playcore, and Game Time, completing on time and on budget. Next. And last but certainly not least, 2 completed projects in the Sully District. Next slide. The Burnett Bridge across Difficult Run Stream Valley was completed in February 2021. This project replaced a 1940s bridge with a new steel bridge connecting the community and the cross-county trail. Funded by BOS Sully District Sidewalk Fund and Proffer Funds, Tom McFarland managed this contract with Bowman and Accubid, completing the project ahead of schedule and under budget. Next slide. And finally, the irrigation replacement project at Poplar Tree Park included 2 diamond and 1 rectangular field. This was funded with 2016 bonds, managed by Mohammed Mahboob with Panoni and Premier Sports Fields. So with that, I just want to thank all staff who have done the work, a lot of completed projects this quarter, all the work that's represented in this report, and acknowledge how they've continued to meet deadlines and maintain project budgets throughout challenging times where we're seeing significant construction cost increases. And thanks to all the board for your continued support of these capital improvements. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Good job. All right, information item number 4 is the Go Ape update with Cindy Walsh.
Good evening, everyone. So I get the last fun topic. Hannah, can you please pull up the presentation? All right, can everyone see that? All right, this is Cindy Walsh. I'm the Park Services Division Director, and Mr. Thompson asked me to provide an update on Go Ape and where we are with our partner there. Next slide, please. So Go Ape, what is it? It's a really unique opportunity for the Park Authority because we're only 1 in 14. So there's 14 locations in 13 states. We have 2 locations here in Virginia. One is in Williamsburg, and of course ours is the best here in South Run. They're really unique in that they also have a very environmental focus. They're in the trees, but they do no harm, and that's a big focus for them. So it's a really fun mission is what I really like about them, because I think they live up to this mission, and that's they want to inspire everyone to live life adventurously. And if you haven't done it yet, it's really fun to do. Next slide, please. There's a fine bunch. They're opening it on May the 4th, 2017. So we've been operating this, or they've been operating this on our property for 4 years now. And this started as an RFP with the Park Authority, and it ended in a contract with us and a revenue share agreement. Their season goes from March to October. And I have to tell you, they're one of the best partnerships that I've worked with in the Park Authority. They are collaborative. They ask us for anything that they want to do. They don't just jump ahead. They're always asking for ideas or putting new ideas in place. They're just a really fun group of people to work with, and they just really follow through on everything they promise. Next slide, please. So the facilities they have there are very unique and very cool. If you haven't been there, they've got 3 different types of experiences. They've got 2 courses, but 3 different types of experiences. So they range anywhere from your 50 feet up in the air on high platforms to you could be 27 feet in the air on a platform. They range from a 320-foot zip line to you could go on a 75-foot zip line. It depends on the experience you want. If you really want to be scared, go on the first one. If you want to be just kind of like a little bit adventurous, you can go on the smaller one. On the left-hand side, that is one of the scary ones. That's called the monkey drop. So the monkey drop is 40 feet in the air. And what you do is you get on that platform and you free fall 10 feet down. Super cool. If you ever get out there, it's really fun to do. The thing that we're looking at, or they're designing or in the design phase for, is the thing that's on the right here. This is a NETS course, and they're designing this to put it in 2022. On the right-hand side, this is really just a rendering of what this thing will look like. It's like a outdoor Chuck E. Cheese on steroids. So kids can get up in those nets and they're playing with balls and stuff. And there's some of these slides, you can see the red sliding and the green. It's just a really fun activity. It's adding something, a new amenity to the course, because once you've done Go Ape once, then maybe you don't want to do it again, but you might come back to do something like this. In the middle there is the location. If you follow the arrow there on the left-hand side, this is located with the actual course itself, which is in those trees right there. Next slide, please. So the other types of services they provide is unique for us. I mean, it's neat that we can bring birthday parties to the park. We can do schools and camps and corporate events. But the thing I really like that they do, and they've been very, very true to this, and they've done it every single year, they offer scholarships and free tickets for low-income groups. This hits our One Fairfax initiatives, and it's just a really good thing for them to do, so that the Department of Family Services or Community Services Board will contact them directly, say, we are looking for free or discounted tickets, and they take care of that for us, and the groups come in. They weren't able to give me the numbers this time, but they do have quite a few people who make these requests each year. Next slide, please. So what's the benefits to the county and the park authority? On the left, of course, I selected a picture of Supervisor Harity. Tourism is a big initiative for him. And this creates tourism because people from outside of Fairfax County come here. They gave me numbers saying that in 2019, of the 23,000 participants they had 23% of them were out of county. So they were bringing in new business, new people coming in to South Run, which helps our business and then just in the county in general. It also is an opportunity for jobs. Mostly there's young folks out there, but we have jobs throughout the season, which again is March through October. They also provide access at a discount for us for our summer camp. So it's a really cool thing for our camps to go to our field trips and not just go somewhere else. If you look on the right there, there's some financial benefits. They, just like everything outside this year, tripled their business. So they went from 2020, this is our profit. We went from 10 to 78 in 2020 to this year. We haven't even finished the year. We are at $34,521. This money is for us for doing absolutely nothing. We have coordinating meetings with them on occasion. We may have to come out and check out a tree that they, want us to look at or something like that, but it really is just money in our pockets, and they bear the burden of the cost. And the other thing that's unique about this, it's an outdoor adventure opportunity. It's not anywhere else except for, as I said, 14 locations. We just happen to be one of them. So it's really cool for us to be able to offer something that we don't offer anywhere else in Fairfax County and even across the country. So the partnership for us, you can go to the next slide. It has worked out fantastic for us. It is a really great thing. We get nothing but great comments from the people who visit. They're happy with us. We're happy with them. And if you have any questions, I am available to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Great presentation. I still scratch my head how Riverbend fought this. I just can't get over Riverbend fighting this.
Tim Hackman, I was thinking the same thing.
Oh my God. They would kill if they saw this now. They would want one tomorrow. Unbelievable.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to note, when Cindy and I talked about this originally, this was at Riverbend relatively controversial. And so South Run ended up with it, and it has been a great partnership. But one of the things that when Cindy and I talked about it, Cindy talked about how easy the company was to work with and that kind of stuff. And I know that there may be potentials to do more stuff in the future. So I just thought it was important that rather than just me hearing all the good things going on at South Run, that you all be aware of how this partnership has evolved from the time when Kevin Fay was still on the board trying to work through these issues to where we are today.
Yeah, I can't wait for this to come to Lake Fairfax. Ron?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of my question is, do the demographics suggest that we can talk to them about expansion, or do they have their own plan?
Well, then Cindy Walsh, Park Services, they are interested in another course. They're trying to add to this course and see how it does. They don't want to take away, from one market and just move that customer base to another market. But they are very open to that. They just want to give it a little more time, particularly after COVID. They weren't sure financially what was going to happen to them. But the contract that we have with them would allow us to offer this opportunity in other parks.
Thanks, Cindy. All right, anything else? Okay, good. On to Chairman's matters. Chairman will shut up. Staff is doing a great job. And that's all I've got for right now. Sarah, it's on you.
Thank you, Chairman Bowie. Sarah Baldwin, Acting Director. Some good news to report from the Park Foundation. Despite everything going on with COVID, the Park Foundation has raised $750,000 to date this fiscal year. So kudos to them, and many thanks to the many donors that have donated to the foundation throughout the year. And then some other good news. The Park Authority will soon be introducing monthly billing. We presented this initiative to you probably over a year ago now, and obviously it was delayed because of COVID. So we plan to move forward with the monthly billing option over the next month and a half, with online sales starting at South Run Rec Center, and then full rollout at all rec centers in June. Monthly billing capability has long been desired by the rec centers, and we're happy to begin rolling out the programs to meet many of the customer requests to have a different payment option in place. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Quincy?
Mr. Chairman, I'll pass.
All right. Linwood?
Pass.
Mike Thompson?
Real quick, want to thank the Park Foundation for all their work getting the shelters at Burke Lake. Those shelters are awesome. I want to thank the Park Foundation and thank the staff at Burke Lake for all they've done to make that project possible. And also just a shout out on the monthly billing. Sometimes we overlook the fact that it's sometimes hard for a lot of families to write one check to cover an entire year. And being able to do that on a monthly basis is really helpful. So thank you.
Kyle?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Ron?
I'd just like to thank the staff for what they've been doing. I feel like they're a little bit short-staffed and we need to hire up now, but the folks that we have in place are certainly 100% on the ball.
Jim?
Nothing, thank you.
Faisal? Faisal? Okay. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 items. I'd like to thank Judy Peterson, Stephanie Leadham, Paul Shirey, and their staffs for the public information session on McLean Central Park Monday night. There were about 65 participants, a lot of spirited questions in the chat room. The way forward is not entirely clear, but I appreciate all the work there and in the future. Also, for everybody's benefit, tomorrow morning at 11:30. There's going to be a watch party virtual tour of the improvements that have been made at Turner Farm by Sarah Kirk, the resident curator, and really exciting what she's done, and it looks terrific. So the link for that will be on the Park Authority's resident curator page. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Abena?
I'll pass. Thank you.
Cynthia?
Yes, I was able to attend the LA Doyle Awards planning meeting led by Judy and her team. It was an excellent meeting and they're doing great work. So I think everybody's going to be excited. Secondly, I was also able to attend the Park Authority, the Foundation Board's annual meeting last week. And again, that was a great meeting and just full of information. And as has been said before, they're doing a great job, as is the whole team that's on tonight. So thank you.
Great. Maggie?
Pass, thank you.
Great. Yeah, kudos again, double kudos again to the Park Foundation. They're doing great work. All right, we will now go into closed session.
This is Mike Thompson. I move the Park Authority Board recess and convene in closed session for the discussion and consideration of matters enumerated Virginia Code 2.2-3711 and listed in the agenda for this meeting as follows. The discussion and consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose or for the disposition of publicly held real property where a discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position and negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A3. And discussion of personal matter pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1.
Ken Quincy, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. We are now in closed session for approximately 45 minutes.